Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. Today I want to try something a little different and explore something a little more interesting about the deep lore of the Halo universe and something very, very close to home. The origin, rise, and fall of humanity. Having evolved and achieved civilization on Earth, originally known as Erda or Erd Tyreen, humanity first became a spacefaring civilization at some point prior to 1,100,000 BCE. These early humans settled on numerous worlds along the galactic margin. These regions would be a target by the Flood's initial assault over 1 million years later. Early in their history, long before encountering the Forerunners, humanity underwent a series of technological dark ages which left their populations scattered across many worlds and resulted in the loss of most of their records, including the knowledge of Earth being their original homeworld. It was not until much later when scientists led by Prim-Prikushma confirmed that humanity had arisen on Earth. Around 150,000 BCE, humanity moved their civilization outward along the Orion Arm, possibly to flee Forerunner control. After recovering from their dark ages, humanity made the former precursor world Charam-Hakor their capital to be close to one of the greatest collections of precursor structures. Humanity also formed an alliance with the Sanshayum species in order to gain access to their advanced technology. At their height, humanity's technical achievements nearly rivaled that of the Forerunners, a point which drew the attention of the higher ranking among the Forerunners. This new, powerful human civilization encountered the Flood in approximately 107,445 BCE and went to war against the parasite after discovering its true nature. After losing many planets to the Flood, humanity desperately invaded a minor sector of the Forerunners' ecumene, ostensibly in an attempt to seize new territory to replace the worlds that had been lost, through at least some instances of seeming aggression where in fact humanity sterilizing worlds where Flood infestation had already taken hold. Nevertheless, the Forerunners responded violently to this aggression and waged war with the humans and their Sanshayum allies. The resulting conflict lasted for 1,000 years. 40 years before the last conflict between humanity and the Forerunners, a human expeditionary group encountered an ancient being held in hibernation on a planet near the galaxy's edge. Under Prim-Prikushma's orders, this being, known as the Primordial, was placed in a stasis capsule and transported to Charam-Hakor for study. Human researchers found a way to communicate with the entity, asking in vain for answers to various scientific and morality questions, receiving no useful responses. Instead, the being revealed disconcerting truths about humanity's origin. This was believed by some to have caused the demoralization of human culture and thus contributed to their defeat against the Forerunners. They also inquired the Primordial about the Flood. The answers they received were so traumatizing that many committed suicide. After a certain point, the Flood's rampage throughout human territory stopped. The Flood no longer infected humans and instead began to rapidly die out, with both humans and Forerunners sterilizing the remaining infections. Based on this pattern, the Forerunners came to the conclusion that humanity had discovered a cure for the Flood. According to the Forerunner records, the humans sacrificed 1/3 of their total population, implanting them with destructive, artificially programmed genes used to target the Flood on a genetic level. In reality, however, the Flood had receded by its own volition after the sacrifice. No truly functioning cure was ever created or used by humanity, though both Forerunners and humans themselves remained under such illusion. Stretched thin due to fighting 2 wars at once, the humans were finally driven to their capital of Charam-Hakor. After holding off for 43 years, they were defeated at the hands of the Forerunners, led by the Didact. Before the fall of Charam-Hakor, some humans suggested they should draw out the Flood and use it against the Forerunners. However, this strategy was denied as the human leadership chose to face their defeat rather than allowing the Flood to spread. As punishment for defying the Forerunners, nearly all of humanity was wiped out, and the remnants and technological achievements of their civilization were extirpated. Furthermore, the surviving humans were subjected to a process of biological devolution. Live humans were forced to consciously experience an artificially induced reversion of their evolutionary process, to the point of their bodies transforming to their ancestral forms and eventually losing intelligence. The remnants of the human species were exiled to Earth, where they were overseen by the Librarian. While many foreigners wanted to see humanity exterminated, the Librarian had always been considered their greatest protector. In only 1,000 years, humanity recovered many of their prior forms, along with many new ones, due to the assistance of the Librarian and Urgesh. As well as unknown factors, not even the Librarian and our life workers could explain. Over 20 human species made recovery and formed separate populations on Earth, including but not limited to Hamanush, Katamanush, Bashamanush, and Chamanush. This meddling was noted to have considerably distorted the Earth's natural fossil records. The Forerunner victory proved disastrous for the galaxy, as the humans destroyed all of their research data and physical evidence concerning the Flood, including their supposed cure. Born Stella makes Eternal lasting speculated it may have been humanity's last act of revenge to leave the Forerunners unprepared to face the incoming threat that led to the firing of the Halo Array. The last human survivors on Charam Hakor were subjected to thorough analysis and experimentation in order to discover their supposed Flood immunity. Eventually, their patterns were extracted by composers and archived in machine storage, where the human essences would be incessantly scoured for a cure for thousands of years. The Librarian and the Didact later learned that humanity had never developed a cure or a way to fend off the Flood. As the remnant of the precursors, the Flood sought to punish the Forerunners for destroying them and ensure that humanity obtained the mantle. When the Forerunners retaliated against the humans for invading Forerunner worlds, the Flood predicted that the Forerunners would try to exterminate humanity. Of its own volition, the Flood abruptly receded from human territory, knowing that the humans would temporarily rebound and thus unknowingly deceive the Forerunners into thinking that they may have developed a cure. This caused the Forerunners to restrain themselves from eradicating humanity completely and preserve a regressed remnant population, since they needed living humans to study their apparent Flood cure was to be found. After their once highly advanced civilization had been shattered by the Forerunners, most humans lived within hunter-gatherer communities. Forced to start again, the collective human genus tried in vain to retain their former glory. Some human communities, such as the civilization built around Erd-Tyrene's largest city, Marontic, established wooden cities and steam-powered waterborne vessels nearly 9,000 years later. Most humans, however, lived in Tier 7 tribal communities, such as the one that was encountered by the Forerunners during the reconstruction of the portal to the Ark in Eastern Africa. After the activation of the Halo Array, the human civilization regressed once again, and would remain a Tier 7 hunter-gatherers for nearly 100 millennia, until the modern era. For much of humanity's history prior to the mid-26th century, virtually all artifacts and records of their former civilization had been lost to time. However, in the mid-2550s, after the Human Covenant War had ended, small but significant discoveries began to trickle in about humanity's powerful past. On Heian, ruins were found resembling a wide variety of human styles, including Greco-Roman, Middle Eastern, and East Asian with subtle Forerunner themes. The Department of Xenoarchaeological Studies at the University of Edinburgh found the obvious elements of human architecture in the structures puzzling, wondering if their builders borrowed from human architecture or the other way around. The Office of Naval Intelligence discovered one derelict ancient human vessel at Site Yankee 002 G3. The Xenomaterials Exploitation Group examined the artifact in ONI Xenomaterials Exploitation Report 15Y1198 and assessed its tactical capabilities. Their report recommended that further analysis of the ship should be immediately assigned to Project Arcdream, and noted that investigation of its weaponry was already underway by a team on Azura Moon. Records of prehistoric humanity began to be encountered as well. On Onyx, an artifact referred to as the Born-Stellar Relation gave a testimony of the life of the Forerunner. Born-Stellar makes eternal lasting, including the knowledge that humanity had once been a Tier 1 species. This account was complemented by the testimony of the remains of 343 Guilty Spark, who related to listening scientists about his life as the prehistoric human Chakas. In July 2557, the Spartan II John 117 encountered an artificial, archived personality of the Forerunner known as the Librarian on Requiem. She revealed the times of ancient human Forerunner wars to the Spartan, as well as the origins of the mechanical Prometheans, ancient humans who had been the first conscripts into the Didact's army during the last years of the Forerunner's war against the Flood. The Librarian further revealed that she had been guiding humanity since their devolution, notably instigating the physical evolution of the select few humans who met the Spartan II program's genetic requirements, as well as the creation of power armor and even AIs like Cortana in an attempt to prepare humanity from an unknown threat. The Librarian would call John the culmination of 1,000 lifetimes of planning. John would later share this information with the bridge crew of the UNSC Infinity. At some point, the UNSC would discover some ancient human ruins with knowledge on a dead world and a shattered starship with a vault full of unknown materials. Using technology gathered from both discoveries, the UNSC would create the Hellcat class Mjolnir. Through various data archives, including stored memories and recollections by 343 Guilty Spark and various Forerunner archives of ancient human essences stored via their composer technologies, the Office of Naval Intelligence managed to construct a more complete picture of what these ancient humans looked like via a plethora of digital reconstructions. These prehistoric humans possessed a facial composition identical to that of modern humans. While ancient humans exhibit a range of morphological variation, the ethnic group represented by Forthencho and his bridge crew were remarkably similar in appearance to modern Homo sapiens. They possessed straight to wavy hair textures, thin to full lips, and overall largely similar facial composition to their modern counterparts. They all had black or dark brown skin. Like modern humans, ancient humans had a range of different body types. For example, Forthencho was tall and muscular, while Prinprekushma had a short, stocky build. Despite the technological and biological achievements of their descendants, prehistoric humans naturally possessed more body mass and strength and were on average significantly more intelligent than modern humans. The Librarian said that, if not for their encounter with the Flood, prehistoric humanity's gene plan could have surpassed that of even the Forerunners. After fighting against the Didact for 53 years, in the endgame of the Human Forerunner Wars, Forthencho had acquired noticeable facial wrinkles. However, he still retained the body mass he possessed in his youth. Given the length of Forthencho's career, being at least 1,000 years, it can also be concluded that ancient humans had much longer lifespans, a record made by 343 Guilty Spark on Reclaimers, and specifically John 117, indicated that one of the physiological ailments he possesses in modern humans is a highly truncated lifespan than their modern descendants, whether naturally due to advanced medical science or a combination of the two, although their lifespan still paled in comparison to those of the Forerunners. Even now, very little is known about human culture of this time. According to the Ur-Didact, humanity believed themselves to be the true inheritors of the mantle of responsibility, a notion the Forerunners considered as heretical. Ironically, the precursors had actually intended for humans to inherit the mantle instead of the Forerunners. Regardless of the pressure on their growing populations and the flood, humans were also said to be particularly cruel towards other species. Chakas, examining the harvested memories of his ancestors imprinted on him as part of his gesh, discovered they believed in creating many souls or expanding their population by conquering and claiming other worlds. After centuries of constant warfare against the Forerunners and the Flood, human society had become exceedingly militarized. Military officials often wielded significant decision-making power, and some military offices, namely that of the political and moral commander, doubling as political leadership. During the siege on Charam Hakor, even human children were organized into their own defensive guards. Officers of the ancient human fleets sported various kinds of white facial markings and typically had long hair. Warship crew members wore unadorned form-fitting suits of body armour, apparently lacking any markings or other features denoting rank, although more elaborate uniforms existed, possibly for ceremonial occasions. At least some ancient humans practiced a polytheistic religion, including the Lord of Admirals. The Didact noted that humans had a tendency of worshipping inanimate objects, including precursor artifacts. In addition, the humans believed in teaching of Dawa Madthu, a concept regarding the role and tug of the universe on an individual. In the decades prior to the dismantling of their civilization, humans were technological equals to the Forerunners in many areas, likely placing them on a tier 1 on the Forerunner technological achievement scale. This was largely thanks to the efforts of Prin Prikushma, who encouraged humanity to study Forerunner technologies encountered in earlier conflicts. Despite this, the technological achievements of the Forerunners still overshadowed those of humanity in many fields, including mega-scale engineering and slipspace technology. For example, the humans were seemingly unable to construct megastructures on the scale of a Halo installation, and their understanding of space-time reconciliation was inferior to that of the Forerunners, who were able to use their superior understanding of slipspace to an advantage by clogging the human slipspace channels and slowing their interstellar travel. Humans of this time used artificial intelligence constructs known as servitors. These robotic intelligences assisted human scientists in reverse engineering Forerunner technologies during the Forerunner Wars, nearly bringing the technological gap between the two civilizations to zero. On Charam Hakor, the humans built vast constructs supported by precursor structures, cities stretching to orbit along orbital arches, described by Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting as resembling ivy growing on great trees. In addition, they built energy towers and defense platforms operating at geosynchronous orbit and equigravitation, linked by virtually unbreakable precursor filaments. Many human worlds were encompassed by vast railway networks, a technological achievement 4th Encho took pride in. Human and Forerunner infantry shared many similar military technologies, including advanced battle armor and directed energy weapons, such as particle rifles. The Didact indicated, at one point, humanity, with the help of San Shayun, had developed offensive military technologies that the Didact's warriors had no effective defense against, which enabled them to compensate against their overwhelming numbers of Forerunner military. Human warships could emit high-intensity energy streams capable of destroying Forerunner ships and sterilizing entire flood-infected worlds. Examples of ancient human warship types include the prime cruisers and tuned platforms. Were it not for the cataclysmic effects of the Halo Array and the forced devolution of humanity at the hands of the Forerunners, humanity would likely have become the dominant force in the galaxy, wielding technology and knowledge completely unequalled by any other species in the galaxy, with the exception of the precursors. That position would likely have led to humanity taking the mantle of responsibility from the arguably more volatile and egotistical Forerunners, affirming the precursors' desires for humanity to uphold the mantle and ushering in a lasting peace and prosperity that hasn't been seen since the time of the precursors. But alas, this was a reality that fate didn't see fit to allow. The ancient past of the Halo universe is still shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions. If you like this video and would like me to explore more of the ancient past, like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment about what you want me to look at next. Thanks for watching. If you really liked what you've seen here, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you're notified the second I put a new video out. Also, if you're really into what I'm doing here, pop over to Patreon and give whatever support you can over there. At Patreon I'm releasing content early, cultivating an ideas area where you guys can suggest and discuss the next topic of conversation, and I've set some milestone points of things I'd like to achieve with you through this channel. Thanks again, much love, now go rest your brains.